Hello, everybody. It is time once again for Saturday Night Live. It's Saturday, it's night time, and we're live. So why would you call it anything else, really? There we go. What a panel we've got tonight. It's the same as always, with the exception of the wonderful, wonderful Tone, who we're delighted to have back on the channel. So, Tone, thank you for joining us. Of course, we've got the wizened old thoughts of Mr. Stu Woolley just there to my left. We'll have Andrew and John as well. And I can't wait to get into all of the things we're going to be talking about today. So I want to kick off with Fred, because obviously he's left and he's put quite a nice emotional message out there. Stu, straight to you. Why is it that you think that Ten Hag got rid of Fred?
A bad idea. That one in. Timo there.
Yeah, no, I was waiting for somebody to mute. Why do I think Ten Hag got rid of Fred? Interesting, really, because I think Fred, as it would have gone on this season, would have been quite a vital cog in our wheel, really. I think when we played him in his normal position as a box-to-box player, I think he showed what he can do. I thought he showed what his attributes are. Irrespective of what people think about his sometimes lack of control in games, that's physically, mentally, and his actual attributes on the ball. There are occasions where he just couldn't trap anything. You know, he couldn't pass. It'd bounce off his knees, bounce off his shins, come off his ankles, etc. But there were occasions where he was actually invaluable in matches. Where he played a sublime role of winning the ball back and distribution. Because sometimes that's all you need to do in football. You just need to win the ball back and move it on to a different part of the pitch quickly rather than slowly. So we had this up and down kind of career with us. I think he was clearly sought after when he was at that Ukrainian side, Shakhtar Donetsk. I think he was clearly rated. I mean, City was supposedly in for him. We supposedly won the race, but he never really, I don't think, fulfilled the type of player that he could be. And there's varying reasons for that. And I think mainly is that we played him alongside Scott McTominay, which isn't going to do anybody any good. And secondly, we played him out of position a lot, really. He was playing too deep for his liking and the fans' liking, really. So, Fenerbahce have got a really good signing. I think it'd be great for them. I'm kind of disappointed to see him go, because one thing you'd never label at Fred was he was never lazy. He never took wearing a red shirt of Manchester United as just a football shirt. He took it seriously, day in, day out, and week in, week out. But with that becomes turbulence, and we've seen it in a variety of players in the past. We'll see it in a variety of players in the present, and we'll see it in the future. You know, this particular shirt weighs very, very heavy on good footballers' shoulders. And we saw it under the Fergie era. You know, some really talented footballers that just never fulfilled that potential. So I'm quite sad to see him go. I thought it was a lovely message that he left for the fans. I think the fans will embrace him even more. Actually, I think now he's not at the club, he'll become a greater fixture and a greater stature, greater legend of the club, because he'll be remembered more fondly than some of the players that have gone before him, and some of the players that will move on after him. So yeah, I wish him all the best. The Pastor Fred, as we call him, is no more. But I think someone like Fenerbahce, I think, will bring the best out of him, and I think you'll start to see a better Fred again, which I'm quite pleased for. So
absolutely hard to disagree there. Andrew, you obviously had the privilege of watching Fred when he has been out on the pitch. When I think back to some of the Brazilian players that United might have had before, how would you rank him against the likes of Kleberson? Because to me, I'd say he's probably the best Brazilian we've had at the club.
I think I saw something on earlier. Somebody posted about Fred. He said he's probably the most unpredictable Brazilian of them all. So, but in terms of his time at United, he's despite the frustration over his ability, I mean, he was a player we could always rely on. I mean, he's probably one of the few players that was rarely injured, and when he did play, apart from a few shocking performances, you could say he gave at least a 6 out of 10, which is what you needed from. Essentially, he was a squad player. And obviously, when he formed that partnership with McTominay as well, it was like a marriage of convenience. But I think over time, that partnership might, diminish his reputation at United. But when them two played together, there was always the abuse online they got, no matter how they played. So it was like, Fred's reputation will always take a hit because of the Fred partnership as well. So. And also, was he worth the fee that we paid for him? I mean, during that first season, he did struggle to settle in, and I mean, his physical strength wasn't there compared to the other midfielders in the league, and he was probably knocked off the ball many times. But after that season, I think he bulked up and used his physics to his advantage. And I think there was one game that season. I think we went away to City and we won 2-1, and then from then on, he was like you could rely him on the big games, even this season when he was partnered with Casemiro, he always performed the best, in the big games as well. And I think back to the Europa League game against Barcelona, he got the equaliser, and my friend Andy turned to me and we just both looked at each other and went, Fred's equalised for us. So, I mean, now that he's going, I think he'll depart as being a success and for what he offered as well. And I think looking back, he's a player that I've grown to love over the years. And so, but yeah, he'll definitely be remembered for his commitment on the pitch and his passion as well, and also his goals and assists last season that he got as well.
Literally nobody has fallen for the little bit of bait that I dropped there about being the best Brazilian to play for the club, even though we've got obviously Big Cass who's around as well. But there we go. I thought maybe somebody might go for that, maybe not. But there we go. Tony, let's come to you for this bit, because obviously we just mentioned Casemiro, you've got Eriksen, Mount, obviously Fernandes, all of those who can play in that midfield. But do you not think Fred would have been a perfect backup for this? Where would you say we're going to go? If we're not having Fred, who are we going to go for?
I think you've got to bear in mind with Fred, there's a couple of variables that go into him. And not just his ability to play, you've got to bear in mind he's on the last year of his contract with the club. He isn't getting any younger. And I do think his playing time would have been quite limited this season. I do think Ten Hag prefers McTominay. And I think in the long run, he's got a lot. Obviously, there's the reports that Scott's not going to be sold this summer and he's going to stay in the club. I think there's too many players that. I think the thing with Fred that always stuck with me was his effort. His effort was always 10 in my eyes. Obviously, ability compared to effort is two different things. You can try really hard at something, not be the best at it. But for me, Fred always came across to me as the sort of person who took pride in what he was doing. And even when things were bad, he was trying to improve. And to be fair, I know a lot of people who've met him in Manchester and they say he's such a nice bloke as well. He takes everything in his stride and he's just a really cheerful, happy person. I'm good because I like Fred. I remember last season we were talking about the duality of Fred quite a lot in our conversations. Like there'd be one half of Fred where he'd be there like, who is this bloke? And the next half it'd be there like, this guy's all action, everything, doesn't stop running. The marathon man, and I'm going to miss that. I'm going to miss having those little laughs, those little conversations about him, and I'm glad he's getting a move to somewhere where he's going to be really appreciated at Fenerbahce. I think he's going to be one of their main players, and it's ended well. I hate to have thought he wouldn't play this season, and then he leaves the end of next season. We go, we didn't really do much for us in that last season. Had like a handful of appearances, whereas now. It's there like he's left on a semi-high. He's won a trophy with us. He's got us back into the Champions League. And, we've made... The thing is, though, in the midfield, unless we sign a replacement, we've not really replaced Fred in a lot of ways. I know Mount's coming to the club, but Mount isn't really a Fred replacement, in my opinion. So it's there like... Unless Ten Hag's thinking about something in further afield, or maybe it's just the fact that he didn't really like Fred all that much. I don't know. There's a lot of things, but Fred wouldn't be the first person in midfield that I'd have seen gone, to be honest. And I think I'm a bit gutted because I think there's a player in there. I just don't know if it's a title-winning midfielder player.
Yeah, I think it's one of those interesting ones, isn't it? It's one where, John, you've got to have these players that can step into the midfield. For example, Darren Fletcher, you know, who was never the most technical. He was never going to be the one that had all the headlines written about him. But when he came in, he did a job, he worked hard, and he just absolutely ensured that we would get across the line in games at times. When it comes to Fred, how do you feel about the fact that he is no more for United?
Yeah, I think such fun things you mentioned. I think I probably will miss him to some degree because he did obviously bring energy. I've seen some comments this week, like for example, he make a boring game interesting, whether it be for a good reason or a bad reason. He no doubt gave his own. I think it goes to the point that we've had players over recent years have so much talent who don't give their all. Now, Fred, talent-wise, isn't as good as certain players that we've had, but you can never say he didn't give his all. He played to the level which he was capable of playing, and I think he had his uses, like you mentioned last season. He scored a few goals, Barcelona. I remember his performances in the derby as well, and I think that. I think he's one of those players where you know after 5 minutes whether you're going to get good performance or bad performance out of him. It was never like in between with him, really. And I think that he's. I can see why Ten Hag might think I need someone who's. I think at times with Fred, there were times where he acts like a bit like headless chicken, almost where he just used to run without thinking necessarily. But I do like Fred. I think he was a good squad player to have, and he was integral in the midfield on the Solskjaer and that. And I think also he reminded me, even though it's a different position, but it was like he reminded me a bit of Ji-sung Park in a way, in terms of because Park he was complete energy, never the most technically gifted footballer, but he used to run around. He'd always start in big games, and Fergie trusts him and that. And I think Fred, even though it was a different position, was a bit similar to that. He will bring energy, he will get his foot in, will make tackles, he'll give silly fouls away, but also when your possession's some. So for me, I think he was a good player, and like Stu mentioned, I think he'll be appreciated by Fenerbahce, and he'll definitely be a useful player for them. And Tony has said, I think you need to get someone in. Obviously, we've been linked with Amrabat, someone like that. You do need midfielders combative who possibly is a bit better on the ball. Possibly, I think that's the upgrade that we'll look for.
There you go. That's it. Fred is off. He's on his way to Fenerbahce, and he spent 5 years with us, and he's done pretty well, to be fair. So, yeah, lots of love for Fred, as there should be. The guy's worked hard, and I love it when you get a decent message, as he did give to the fans. We know that he cared a lot about putting on the red of Man United, and that's really all we ever want from our players, is that they care, and they set that good example, and Fred is absolutely the epitome of that. Speaking of good examples, we'll start with Andrew on this one. Harry Maguire, to me, a brilliant example, an example of patience, of calmness, of just being able to stay professional in the absolute cesspit that is public opinion. It's always difficult. It looks as though Harry Maguire will be on his way to West Ham or another club, but Ten Hag in his press conference did say that Harry Maguire would be available for selection in the game against Wolves on Monday. What do you make of the whole situation? Is Harry Maguire going? And if so, it's the right move, really, isn't it, at the end of the day? Because I think he needs to get out of the toxicity that is the United fan base at the moment.
I think from what I've read, I think Harry Maguire will go, but United want a replacement in first. If the replacement doesn't come in, then Harry will stay. I mean, looking back, when he made his move to us, I just think it was, his chance to establish him as a great defender, and while his performance for England have been strong, probably at club level, he's not quite delivered. I think, was it Michael Dawson said back in 2019, said what makes him an £18 million player is his distribution, bringing the ball out from the black. He's comfortable in tight areas and gets out of trouble, and that makes him a elite player. But if you still look back over his first, his 4 seasons with us, we could argue, was Maguire elite? Probably not. It's just probably his first season was probably his best that he had with us, and then it's all. I think his deficiencies, have been exposed by our attacking game. Whereas if he goes to West Ham, as all believe, then he'll probably flourish, in that more defensive mindset that is under David Moyes. And I just think, and also Ten Hag stripping him of the captaincy, I just think, Harry wouldn't have liked it. I think it was the right decision. I think if you look back on the pre-season we had, I think Harry Maguire didn't have his best pre-season. As I say, if you look at the Bilbao game, he gave away the ball that led to the opening goal. Okay, he did make up for it, and he provided the assist as well for the equaliser. But I just think, maybe is the right time now for Harry to move on, just to get away from all that pressure at United and living up to being the captain. So yeah, do I expect him to see him in the squad on Monday? More than likely, but as I say, until that replacement comes in, then say Harry's not going anywhere at the moment. But I think he should be on his way soon.
It's an interesting one, isn't it, Stu? Because it's like at the moment, public opinion, it's very black and white. You're either Harry Maguire isn't as bad as you make out, or Harry Maguire is literally the devil himself and is the worst player to pull on a pair of shorts since William Prunier back in the 90s. There's no in between. Why do you think it is that people can't land on the fact that actually both things can be true? That he had a couple of fantastic seasons at Manchester United, which resulted in us finishing second, reaching the Europa League final, which he wasn't able to play in, that everybody was bemoaning because we knew we needed the player. Except for Dan, obviously, another Daniel, who thought he played in that match, which was just a bit of a shame. But it's true that you can be that whilst also admitting that there was a mistake in the player, and that therefore, both things can be true, can't they?
Look, it's really very, very straightforward with Harry Maguire, and the honest truth is that footballing eyes took over or got taken over by an agenda. So people weren't watching football; they were just watching Harry Maguire, and that's quite sad, really. If you're a fan of the club and you just watch a player rather than the actual match itself, and this is what began to happen. They began to look at every inch of grass that Maguire covered. What did he do? Where did he put his right foot? Where did he put his left foot? And it became quite pathetic, really. And the problem is, most of the fans that were having a pop at Maguire wouldn't know how to play centre half if it was a brick wall in front of them. They just wouldn't know what to do. They don't know where to stand. They don't know how to turn at the right time. Don't know how to get up, head it, etc., etc., etc. And there's a lot of mitigating circumstances to the way that Maguire was scapegoated. A lot of it was our midfield too, of McFred. We didn't have Casemiro at the time, and the other was the space in behind between De Gea and the two centre halves. People say, well, he's like a large ship turning, he can't turn, etc., etc. You don't need to turn if you've got a goalkeeper that's playing on the edge of his area when we're pushed up in possession. And this is fundamentally the biggest issue that you have. Two centre halves, a goalkeeper and the CDM, those are your box. Those are your protection blanket between runners in behind. And if you've got a goalkeeper that's stuck to his line, which unfortunately De Gea was 9 out of 10 times, you could be fucking Usain Bolt and it makes no fucking difference half the time. If a defender's got 2 yards on you, you've got to make 4 yards. People don't understand this. I think, well, if he's 2 yards, I've got to get 2 yards. How you bollocks? You've got to get 4 yards, maybe 5, because you've got to get in front of him. You've got to get around him and in front of him. Now, Harry Maguire wasn't a quick centre half. We didn't have a hugely quick centre half alongside him in Lindelof, because Lindelof, again, wasn't a quick centre half. And that could be argued that maybe we didn't pair it right. Maybe we got that part wrong. But when I'm a centre half, so whenever I'm playing, and if I've got a slow person alongside me because I'm not particularly quick, I make sure I've got enough time and distance to get back after communication with the goalkeeper, so I know where I am. So if anyone does cut in beside me, I can blame the fullbacks, and not myself. I can just look at the fullbacks and say he's cutting in around me. Where were you? And the other thing is, we've had this real issue with our right fullback for such a long time. Luke Shaw was having a bad season a couple of seasons ago, if you all remember. This hampers a centre half because if these fullbacks also on their game, it's a real problem. So for me, footballing eyes were completely glazed over, and it became a scapegoat. People will either agree or they won't. It's entirely up to them. I don't mind either way. But you've got to understand centre half play before you really go in on Harry Maguire. And the problem is, and this is the real sad part, is that somebody else will get it. It'll be somebody else's turn this season, whoever that may be. It might be Dallo, it might be Wan-Bissaka, it might be Malacia. It's likely to be Mount, probably, if he doesn't really kick on. And that's really, really sad from a set of so-called supporters of your club. One of the things, I mean, look, I'm old school, I'm 53 years old. I would never, you don't turn on a player, you give the player every confidence you can. And so for me, that's what it was. I just think people forgot what they were watching and just focused on him, and they, and started talking about errors that he made. But there's a lot happens, by the way, before a player makes an error, by the way. The ball's actually got to get up to the back four. And so then you've got to question your front three and your midfield three. How's the ball got to me? There's so much you have to consider during the evolution of a game of football. So, look, it is what it is. I've got my view on Maguire. That is my view, and I stand by it.
Absolutely. Tony, it's an interesting one. You're probably, out of the five of us, the closest to the current Twitter, YouTube generation a fan that's coming out nowadays. It's a bit bizarre, isn't it? Because a lot of things that Maguire got thrown at him were things that weren't his fault. We paid £80 million for you. Well, I didn't ask you to do that. I didn't turn around and go pay £80 million for me. You decided to do that as a club, and people use that as a weapon to sort of hit him with, which just feels really quite unfair. By all means, criticise what you see on the pitch, but when they start throwing this other stuff in, I'll never get my head around the fact that you posted a wedding photo and still had people not able to distinguish between Harry Maguire, the man who's just trying to celebrate probably the best day of his life, and still have a go at him. Like, it's mad, really, isn't it? How is it that this is what's happening in football? Because I don't think Stu and I can understand it.
I think there's a difference between criticism and personal attacks, and I think it grew substantially. Like, I can have an opinion on a player. If they make a mistake, doesn't matter who you are, who your name is, if I like you or if I don't like you. But the thing is, like, that people are too personally attached to memes now, and they like to be part of, like, the popular opinion. Like, if you look at United the last few seasons, there's 100 people you could blame for certain goals, certain things. Like legends, De Gea, how many goals has he let in that maybe you should have saved 5 years ago, would have saved 5 years ago? But he doesn't get memed, but Maguire makes, like, and the fact is, like, I'm glad he's moving, not because of the fact he's a bad player. I'm glad he's because I think he's England's best centre back on his day. I think he suits a certain system, and he'd be a dream in a low block. And he's such a determined professional, and you could tell how much he wants to do well at the club. And it just didn't. Sometimes certain players, they can be brilliant, they just don't work out for it for one reason or the other. And as soon as Taggart Hart came in, I did think that Maguire's days were outnumbered. Not because of the fact of Maguire's ability. I'd never disputed that at all. I think it was the fact of the high line that Ten Hag wants to play. Maguire just doesn't suit that system. That doesn't mean he's a bad player. It just means it just doesn't work, unfortunately. De Gea doesn't work in that system. Doesn't mean De Gea's a bad goalkeeper. It just doesn't work. And ultimately, we have to make what the best decision is for the club. But I know people who know Maguire in Sheffield, and I won't go into details, but the abuse that man was getting, and his friends were getting, and his family was getting, was it's next level. Like at the end of the day, football's football, right? It's 22 people on a pitch, 22 players on a pitch, 90 minutes. That's it. You know what I mean? No one should be. He's a donkey. All right, but I'm just reading a comment someone said about me. But I'm just saying, I think Maguire will prove a lot of people wrong once he leaves, because I hope he does. I hope he puts a lot of eggs in people's faces.
He'll be perfect for West Ham, because I'll tell you what, West Ham will play 3 at the back with Maguire. That's what Moyes will do. He'll run 3 at the back, and Maguire will be super comfy with 3 at the back. He'll do all right there.
The thing is, I think what Rob is saying is Maguire is a donkey, lucky to still be here. Right. Ultimately, why is he a donkey? He's a professional footballer. He's never put a foot wrong for his club outside of being like on the pitch. He's been a great ambassador for the club. The amount of times he could have gone to the press and gone, moan about this, moan about that, like so many players do when they don't get their own way. And he's took it on the chin like a professional. He's gone to Ten Hag and gone, look, whatever part of the team you want me to play in, I will play that way for you. Mm. And ultimately, it's not worked. And I'm so happy that, we're going to recoup some money for him. He's going to get a move to a club that's going to suit him and treat him the way he deserves to be treated. Because at the end of the day, no one deserves the amount of abuse that guy's got. Like, there's players out there who are despicable human beings outside the pitch, and they're lauded because of their ability. Right? It makes the internet makes no sense to me, and I'm a young guy, and I just think I think it's toxicity, isn't it? Like, people will make scapegoats. I will call it now. Dalot and Mount will be the scapegoats this season. I know last week Dalot was.
I think you're right. You're right.
Dalot made one misplayed pass against Lens last week. A goal happened. It was a world-class goal last week. And people go, Dalot can't play right back. It's like, come on, Matt. Come on. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like it's pre-season, and these things are meant to happen in pre-season to get used to the way we're going to play during the season. And it's better these things happen now than in a game that matters. And Martial's a donkey now as well. What the people who say these people are donkeys don't actually ever go to football matches either. They're the sort of people who watch 10-minute highlights on Twitter and think they've got an opinion on football. When really, if you actually have like and I'm not saying this is someone who goes to games and stuff. I just think there's a level of respect that's involved in life. And, if someone's putting an effort towards something, no matter what, if they're the best or they're just okay at something, you have to respect the fact they're trying to do well. And sometimes it just doesn't work out, unfortunately. And I'm hoping just things work out for Maguire and we get someone in who suits what Ten Hag wants to do in the future.
I think that's pretty much how we all feel. But John, Dav here has put Maguire didn't help himself with his self-delusion and ducking interviews as captain. I think feeding on from what Tony's just said, this is a situation where if he does an interview, he gets mocked and bullied, whatever you want to call it, online. He's going to get all of that. People shouting at him, booed. He was booed. A Man United player was booed by the Man United fans. Apart from Pogba, I've never heard it. It's something unreal, really. But yet, when his captaincy was stripped, it was again the height of professionalism. And amazingly, he came out and he said to the fans, "You're brilliant. You're the best fans in the world." And he still bigs them up, even though there is a portion of them that are not as nice as they could be. Jarvis has put here, I don't completely agree. Maguire's statements in the media were shocking at times. He never took responsibility as expected from a captain. Do you think he could have ever got it right? Do you think anybody was ever going to allow Harry Maguire to get back, even if he had turned into Eric Cantona or a Roy Keane type captain? Or do you think it was like game over for him?
No, I don't think, it's like interviews, aren't they? Yeah, maybe at times you could say maybe at times he didn't help himself, maybe, but I do agree with the points that, the name calling is just, they're like a fridge and, slaphead and all that, it's just like dehumanize in people, which I'm always against. And as for the booing, obviously he got booed in Australia, and he got booed in where was it? Dublin the other day. But I don't think he ever got booed at Old Trafford, and I think he'll remember that true United fans don't boo their own at the home ground, really. And okay, it happens to Pogba, but that was a minority in the Norwich game last season. Most people, the Stretford end, will boo their own. And I just think that I think it's good for him to move on. I think his time at United has been a tale of two halves. First couple of years, he was very good, especially on the Solskjaer, and he was solid. And many of us at the time were saying that he was a big miss for that final against Villarreal, a couple of years back. And who knows if he had played, they might have won it. Who knows? But as for and then obviously you had the debacle the season after, where he obviously didn't have a good season, and but so did virtually 90% of the team that year. And then obviously last season he did reasonably well when he did play, but obviously his minutes were limited, and he was being phased out. So I think, as you mentioned, I think a team like Antony as well, I think a team with a low block, it'll be very good for it. If you're going to play high line, it will be a weakness for him. So, but I think overall he's not been a bad player. Okay, he was never worth 80 million, let's be frank, but like people say, he hasn't. He's not responsible for that. I made a point recently, I don't think it was helpful giving him the captain's armband 6 months after joining the club. And I think this is where, when things go wrong, people say, oh, he's 80 million and he's club captain. He was given it after 6 months. And I think in hindsight, maybe you could have given it to someone else, and maybe after a couple of years, maybe given it to him then. But overall, I don't think, I don't have any ill feelings towards him. I think a bit like Fred, I think he tried his best. I think he was important for us, but now I think when he goes West Ham, I wish him all the best, personally.
Absolutely. Go on, Andrew.
Yeah, I was going to say, just to add one more point, I think for Maguire, I think he needs to leave United for his own good, not just because the performances, but because of the abuse he's received game to game. You think the reams and reams of comments you see on social media for him to leave the club, it's just shocking. And I think the rather bleak but probably true reality is that Maguire would need to perform 8 out of 10 every single game for a season or two before the narrative changes on him. He could give 37 great performances, but that would be shunted to one side if he gave one bad game that season. And you think with footballers' mental health at the moment, and it's at the forefront of people's mind, especially after Dele Alli and his interview as well. It seems people have forgotten about Maguire's mental state, and when they're hurling abuse at him as well. So I think it's clear that he has to move away from United, not just for his career, but his mental health as well. And I just think it's clear that some United fans, those that have booed him, I don't think they'll ever set their agendas aside when it comes to him. So I just think, I think for one performance against England, or I don't know whether it's when he did that celebration to the cameras, and England fans are like booing him, and they're just like, when he got back to Old Trafford, we were singing his name. So we always back our players. So I don't get why some of our fans were booing him, but like I say, I think it's probably right he moves on, so he's just away from that intense glare. And as Stu said, I think West Ham would be the perfect club for him.
Just another point on Maguire. You remember the 2021 Europa League final where he was injured and it was touch and go whether or not he was going to play, and everyone was clamouring for him to come back because he had a brilliant end to the season. People don't remember that. He doesn't have to, this is the thing, brother. This is the problem with some football fans nowadays. Just the fact he doesn't have to go on social media. It's part of life. You shouldn't have to go. People shouldn't have to go on somewhere and feel in fear of being criticised and abused for something for their job. And it's not nice that you get it, but I don't think that makes it fair for someone else who's just trying to do their job the best of their ability every day, and by their own fans as well.
I think also this mental health element on social media. Now, as we know, there have been some people celebrities who unfortunately self-harmed as a result of this kind of thing. Caroline Flack is probably the most famous one, and that I think eventually it'll get to a point, I think, if we're not careful, where there'll probably be a footballer who ends up doing, self-harm in some kind of way because of the abuse they get on social media, and I do fear that might happen one day, and I think you got a duty of care to people to be responsible with your views, like you say, criticise play for their performance, but don't make it personal about their personal lives when it's their wedding day, frigs and pun. I think that eventually there might come a day when something very tragic happens, and then it might wake us all up, probably. So,
Well, I don't think it will wake people up.
No, I don't, unfortunately. I was about to say that. I don't think it will. I think there's...
And it's
There's
all
a small
anonymous
minded-
people as well. It's usually people who are anonymous who instead of being man enough or strong enough to do it with their own face, to do it under some anonymous name with some picture that isn't them.
there are some people who have done it where they do have the picture, like the guy who, after a pre-season game in the USA, who abused him. There was a clear picture of
that guy.
their name on it, so it's not always anonymous people.
Yeah.
So.
No, but I think it's a tricky one. And just to finish off on this particular topic, you've got Franz here saying United are one of the big club worldwide, not a nursery to massage egos. Maguire, like a few others, are being let go, just isn't up to United standard. Call a spade for a change. I think he's trying to say there. And I think this is where we're getting ourselves lost. Nobody's talking here at the moment about whether or not Maguire should be at the club. And that's the problem. It's not about should he be at the club because he's good enough. The problem is that people are just having a go at him to such a level that they're forgetting the fact that he was arguably our best defender for 2 seasons. And nobody, as Tony just said, nobody mentioned that. Nobody brings that up. Nobody, unless you're Dan, nobody talks about it. And that's really important. I will address also what Speaking Facts has put here. Talking about respect when the same British United fans were very racist and booing Pogba. Listen, booing your own player should not happen. It shouldn't happen. I mean, there's one player I might boo, but we're not talking about that at the moment.
Just about booing your own players. I remember. You remember when Fellaini played for United? Obviously, you all do. I remember he came on to pre-season friendly against Valencia, and I was sat next to an old bloke. I remember this like yesterday because it kind of set my mind because I was about 18, 17 at this point, and a lot of the fans were booing him. And he said to me, "He went, watch what this player will do. He'll score." He scored the winner that day. A lot of people don't realise like these booing and stuff. Like it's weird. It does happen in their own ground as well. Like with Pogba as well last season against Leicester, I could feel the animosity, but I don't think it was due to his skin colour. I think it was more so due to a lot of factors of him leaving the club. It was publicly known that he wasn't going to be here next season.
I think you're right. I think it was a tricky one, but either way, he shouldn't have been booed.
It's a very strong statement by Speaking Facts. A very strong statement. It's a statement. We've got to be very, very careful how you write it, because that's not what this is about. We as a channel are not about that, and fans in general aren't about that. It's really nothing to do with where you were born, skin color, or anything. Gender. It's an irrelevance. There are some morons that will just boo a footballer for the sake of booing a footballer. That's it, purely and simply. So although Speaking Facts is well within his rights to comment, I just think you need to be a little bit careful on how you comment. That's all I would say on that one.
Absolutely. And again, just to finish it off, Jen was saying Pogba self-inflicted. I mean, listen, his attitude wasn't great. But again, it's that understanding that you can dislike a player and not want them to play without needing to sink to the level of having a go at them as a human being. We've got no idea what Paul Pogba's like outside of football. And the same for Harry Maguire, same for quite a lot of the players, actually.
Just what James Dixon said, Barry, he's absolutely right. I follow James on Twitter. He's like me. He sees football. We're very, very similar in the way we see football. And he was right. He's getting dog's abuse because he was supporting and protecting a Manchester United footballer. It's unbelievable. But there you go.
So there you go. But that's the Maguire debate put to bed. It will never be put to bed. But certainly, I think, it's quite sad when you get to a point where you're basically saying a player's got to go, not because of his ability, but just so that the guy can have some form of a life that doesn't involve, as we've mentioned, loads of abuse. Tony, we're going to come back to you now. We're going to look ahead to Monday. It's a tricky one for us insofar as that we know Højlund, obviously, he's still out. Malacia is out. Ahmad, we know, is out. There's no Tom Heaton or Henderson, so Anana's likely to start. But you'd imagine he would have started anyway. If not, what a moment that would have been.
Yeah.
We bought this new one, but he's not playing. And then, of course, Mason Mount as well in contention. How do you see the Wolves game going?
I can't see any other. I think we're going to absolutely annihilate them. I know it sounds super confident, but I've not been as confident about an opening game of the season for such a long time. Wolves are in the crap at the moment. They are really in the dogs. They've lost their two best players. They've lost their three best players in Neves, Jimenez, and Traore, I would say. They've lost their manager. They've not got anyone brought in. I know Gary. Is it Taylor, the new manager for the former Bournemouth?
Gary O'Neill.
Beg your pardon. I know he's a very good manager. Did a good job with Bournemouth last season. I just can't see him doing anything. I could see us beating them by 3 or 4 goals quite easily. I think United will want to put a statement out there. Ten Hag will want a statement performance. He'll want something to come out of there and go like, this is what we're about this season. This is the way we're going to play. Obviously, it's not the ideal starting 11 with obviously Højlund out. I'm sure you'd wanted Højlund to have started, and we're probably going to play a false 9 because of that. But there's a lot of things that I'm excited to see. I hope Mount gets the ground off running, because there's a lot of people. Against Lens on last week, the miss he made, it was behind him. I know maybe he could have scored it, but people giving him dog's abuse about that. So it's pre-season friendly. But the ball was behind him, and he did a lot of good plays on that game as well. And I think sometimes I hope he has a great game. I just want people to shut up about him, because we've bought him. Let's back him. I'm sure he'll come good for us, because you don't get Chelsea's best player. You don't get. My Siri is playing up on my MacBook so bad today. Sorry. But you don't get to be Chelsea's best player twice in a row and be a Champions League winner without having something about you. And I think Mount's got something about him.
Well, I mean, you say United want to put forward a statement. Let's hope this one's not delayed and that we do manage to do it against Wolves and we don't try and put it through to the next game, because that would be a nightmare. Stu. Gary O'Neill, he's just taken over. He's had 5 days to work his magic. You wouldn't imagine at the beginning of the season that you would be immediately looking at a new manager bounce, but here we are. Do you reckon that's going to have any bearing on how this game goes whatsoever, the fact that he's had such a short amount of time with the players?
Yeah, I'm kind of with Tony on it, really. Interesting, though. Harry Kane's not going to win a trophy today, by the way. But anyway, interestingly, I think anyone on the panel would, if I said to you, which formation does Gary O'Neill favour? Nobody knows, because he played a variety of different systems with Bournemouth, which I quite liked, really, because he always set up against the team he was facing. So if he didn't think a 4-3-3 would work, he'd play, a 4-5-1 or whatever. They've lost a couple of players, but I don't think it'll be a walkover at all. I think it's going to be a tougher game than we think, and they will come and they will defend for their lives. Now, I'm kind of, I think Højlund's a great signing for us. I really do, but I don't see goals in him this season. I see maybe 10, maybe 12. I don't see the target that maybe Harry Kane would have bought us, because I think he would have got us 35 goals, to be pretty honest. And Tony's also right. I think we'll just run with a false 9. And I know we'll go through the team later, so I'll give you my picks for that. But I think it'll be a bit of a dogged performance from Wolves. And I think he'll come in, he'll try and defend. For him, he's got two options. He can either write the game off completely, Wolves can, or he can come and try and get a point. I 100% he'll play counter-attacking football. I can guarantee you that. It could be a problem for us, and has been a problem for us with the way that we set up with a 4-2-3-1. Because if he sets up with a 4-3-3, they just destroy us, as we all know, down the wings. Because Rashford and Anthony, although Anthony does get back a lot better than what Rashford does, we're still caught short. But if Dalot plays, his positional sense is shocking. And if Wan-Bissaka plays, he doesn't give us what we actually need up front on the attacking side of it. So it'll be an interesting balance on how they play and what they do. So I think he'll go with a 4-3-3, O'Neill. And I think he'll try to play counter-attacking football against us. But I'm with Tony. I think the lads, I think the gaffer is going to want to put on a performance. I think we win 4-0. We go top of the league because Brighton are top at the minute, aren't they? Over City.
5-0.
Oh, Newcastle, yeah, they are. They got 5-1. I see potentially at the Scousers drawing tomorrow, although I'd love them to unveil Chelsea to unveil Casado just for the crack. That would be absolutely tremendous. But that's just banter. But for me, it's all about, and Jarvis is right, by the way, 4-3-3 will soon, I think it will go to a 4-5-1 when we're in possession, and then they'll try and attack us. So I think Jarvis is absolutely right. Interesting thing though, Wolves have had an okay pre-season up until Lopetegui decided to go, because clearly there was no money to invest in the team. So we shall just see. I'll just cover this one quickly. Pavard for me over Toledo. I think the versatility is exactly what we need. It'd be a great right back, great centre half cover. Robert, you're spot on, mate. Top draw signing. If we can get him for 30 mil euros, steal of the transfer window. That one, absolute steal of the transfer window. So
there we go. Andy, let's come to you then. So it's going to be, as we said, a tricky game. How do you see it panning out? I mean, for a start, you're going to be there. But how do we get past that low block? How do we get past that likely to be deep defence? I mean, we can be pleased they've got some players that aren't there anymore. So Neves, I don't think we've got to worry about coming forward. So in that respect, maybe we don't need to worry too much defensively. But certainly attacking-wise, will we have enough to get against Wolves?
I think we'll have more than that. But then again, several games we've had against Wolves have always been tricky. There've never been many goals, and it's always been like 1-0. So Wolves don't want to prove a point on Monday. And I just think we've sort of been in disarray with Lopetegui leaving as well, because I just think if he'd have stayed and Wolves were willing to invest, I think he would have got them into the top half of the table by the end of the season. But obviously he had his differences with the owners, and he walked out. So I think probably got a good manager in Gary O'Neill, what he did at Bournemouth, keeping him up. So, but I just think Wolves might struggle a little this season. I don't think they'll get relegated, but I just think they'll have a bit more of a struggle. In terms of the squad, I think it's going to be pretty much familiar. I know Neves has gone and Jimenez as well, and I think they brought back Matt Doherty from Spurs as well.
Yeah, good signing that.
So it's going to be very familiar, the squad to us. So and you said, Stu, as well, I think their pre-season games, I don't think they've gone unbeaten, but say pre-season.
That was under Lopetegui, wasn't it? So it'll be interesting. So I think somebody made a point, actually. I think Dave 147 made a point under Lopetegui. It would have been a different game. I think he's absolutely right. It would have been a completely different game. I think it's probably come too soon for O'Neill. But I don't think, no offence, Tone, I just don't see us running away with it, Although Neves will probably score a screamer from Saudi Arabia, because let's face it, he always does it, doesn't he? So he'll put
one against us, will it?
You're sorry.
One against us, will it?
Tosser. He all the time, Neves won it. Neves.
John, your thoughts on Wolves? How do you see it panning out on Monday?
I think it depends on how early we score. I think if we score in the first 15, 20 minutes, I think we might cruise to a win. If we go well like half an hour without a goal, then it'll be interesting. I mean, obviously, it's worth noting that our last game we lost on was the opening day last year, wasn't it? So in the league, so if we were to win it, that'll be year unbeaten at Old Trafford, won't it? So for me, I think, like you mentioned, it's a bit. Gary O'Neill is quite tactically astute. I mean, he kept. I think a lot of people had Bournemouth going down last year, and he kept them up and comfortably picking up big results. So they beat Liverpool 1-0, and that kind of thing. And I think, and we only beat them 1-0 towards the end of the season, and they were very much in that game. So for me, I don't think he'll be as guaranteed to be a walk in the park as some might think. But that being said, I know a few years back when they first promoted, we did struggle against them, but I think we've won 5 of the last 6 against Wolves in the league. So I would expect us to win. Obviously, they've lost players like Raul Jimenez, Traore, how they manage Neves, obviously. So I don't think they possibly won't be the same threat they have been previously, but I do expect them to sit back. And like I say, we'll have to be patient, but keep passing the ball and moving quickly and all that. That'll probably be the way to break them down. But I do expect us to win, but I don't think it'll be necessarily a walk in the park.
I absolutely agree. We're going to round the houses very quickly. What's the score going to be? Stu?
2-0.
Andy?
Same, 2-0.
Tony?
You've got to say 3 now, Tony. You've already said it. Are you muted?
5-0.
Oh, he's going 5 now.
5-1 actually. They'll score a fluky goal.
Probably they'll probably lob Onana, won't they?
100%. It's got it written.
Yeah. So I'll go 3-0.
3-0. Interesting. So nobody thinking what was going to score really. So that's pretty good. Right. Listen, we've got a few sort of miniature things to sort of talk about now. And I know that Stu loves a kit release. So I'm just intrigued. We've had 3 kits drop as to what we think. I'm going to go straight out there and say that my favourite is the home one. I think the way in which we've tried to package the away one into something you can wear with a suit jacket, it's a little bit worrying, considering it's meant to be a football shirt. And the third one, I mean, I like it, but ever since somebody told me it reminds them a little bit of the 80s Liverpool side, which it does, I haven't quite been able to look at it the same way. So I'm intrigued as to what you 3 think is your favourite top out of the 3 that have been released. John, you can start. You haven't started one yet. What's your favourite United shirt?
Favourite one? Well, the home shirts are pretty much all the same nowadays. But I think the third kit's a tribute to 1990 when we won the first FA Cup. So I mean, in terms of his expectations, might come on to that, but I don't. I mean, they're not like the kits in the 90s, are they? Nowadays, but I think if I had to pick one, I'll probably go the home one, probably. But I'm not particularly fussed about any of them, to be honest.
All right, home one for Johnny K. Stu, which one would you get if you could only buy one?
Oh, I'm not fussed either, to be honest. We got to pick one. It'd be the red one. I think the green one is okay. I can see what they're trying to do. They're trying to do something like Newcastle did. If you remember back in the 90s, Johnny K, when they had that kind of red and blue or purple kind of stripe, which had like a grandad collar. It was a more fashion statement, wasn't it? And I think that's what they're trying to do with the away kit. But I'm not.
That's what I mean. I think the thing with what's your favourite kit? We always say their favourite kit. You remember about certain games, don't you, and that kind of thing. So if we wore that shirt,
yeah, for me, the greatest ever kit was 1977 Admiral, because that was my first, and then I think 1979 Johnny K White with the 3 stripes down the left hand. So was it 19?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was
79.
Sexton era. Yes, that was one when we beat Liverpool in the semi-final.
Correct. Yeah, yeah, absolutely love that kit, and I'd love Adidas to do a version of that. I'd like them to buy the design off of Admiral, because I think Admiral's still going, or as a company somewhere. And it'd be tremendous.
I'll tell you what I love. The day the Glazers eventually go, Adidas should get a green and gold shirt. I think it'll sell well, won't it?
God, Jesus Christ!
Yeah,
you know.
I get as soon as Glazer's gone. Hopefully, this
the Glazers are missed. An absolute trick there.
It's all right, Tony. I'm not talking about either pre-1980. Which one would you go for, Tone?
I actually really like the green one. You know, you know what? It's different, but it's different. But it looks it's quite stylish in person. Like, you look at it, you go, you could actually wear that out, like not out, but like I'm saying, if you walk, like in the next 10 years, it'll go online for like £100 and it'll be like a really cool vintage shirt. I could see it being to it like that. I like the red kit because it's got, if you look in the embroidery, it's got the Lancashire rose.
Yeah.
I like that cool little nod and stuff.
Yeah.
The third kit does remind me a little bit too much of Liverpool, a little bit. It's the
excellent.
My favourite United shirt's the 2006-7 shirt with the gold badge, the white badge, and the like with the it's the ARG one with the white V.
Oh yeah, I know which one.
That one. No, it's first United kit I remember being bought for me with Rooney at the back.
There we go. Andrew, which one do you think is the best to drop?
It's probably the third away kit. Say obviously, to surprise, the club crest was replaced with just the the Red Devil emblem. So I think, it was only expected change, but just added a bit of intrigue to the shirt as well. So I think it was a nice touch. I mean, I could have put on the club crest, but I thought and also like the 3 stripes around the collar just makes the shirt stand out a bit more as well. So I very much like the home one as well. The other away kit, I'm still just not sure on yet, but until we play in it, then I'll probably get used to it. But so probably the third away kit for me.
Okay, I'm going to throw this one up, and any one of you, one person, whoever can get there first, can take this one. So go. What's your thoughts on Keno promoting the third kit? Interesting. Who's going to win?
Cool. He's cool. He's just cool, isn't he? You watched the video?
I thought the video was good. Yeah,
the video was actually mint, and he does. Someone said, "Is it this the tie-in for him to come back into United and do more things in an official capacity?" I was there like, he probably not. He's just doing it because Adidas paid him a load of money.
Yeah. 30 years since Keane signed for.
The laces one was proper.
That was nice.
From Mr. Forrest,
wasn't it, in 2016?
Right, that's that one. The next one, that's a little short and quirky one, is we noticed a little thing about Højlund. Apparently, allegedly, Højlund can run 100 meters in less than 11 seconds. This was being thrown out there. And he has confirmed that he is indeed a very, very fast young man over a sprint. Now, in previous races that I know that have taken place, it's been widely accepted that Marcus Rashford is the fastest at the club. Along with Diogo Dalot and Anthony. Very quickly, how do we feel about the pace? And
I'll take this.
Us in the way that we play. Go on then, Stu.
I'll take this, and I'll sum it up very, very simply. Ruud van Nistelrooy was not quick. There you go. That's all I'm going to say.
Neither was Teddy Sheringham.
Exactly. That's all I'm going to say.
I don't think Kansas was particularly quick either, was he?
And you tell me a better finisher that we've had since Ruud, a better finisher, I'm talking. Finisher.
Wow.
Was he quick, or did he just look like he was walking everywhere?
He just wasn't that quick. He got a turn of pace, don't get me wrong, but I mean, over 10 yards, he's not going to get away from you. So as a centre half, it was just a nightmare because what he used to do was ghost in beautifully. And quite frankly, the way that Hoyland plays, I want him in the 12-yard, the penalty spot onwards. That's where I want him. So you can be as fast as you like outside the box. I want you fucking in that box. Get him stuck in.
On that, though, Stu, do you feel that when you start looking at the players that we would have there, Rashford potentially out on the left, Anthony out on the right, and then Hoyland at the front, it's all about that counter-attack and pace, isn't it? Is that what he's doing? He's setting his stall out that's how he might want to play?
Yes, but a number 9 feeds in the area. That's where he lives. That's where he is. And if the ball doesn't come into it, or we don't play it, into his chosen path, his chosen home, then he's not going to get the goals that we need. He won't get the goal.
Could you argue if you've got Anthony and Rashford running down the wings with it, you're going to need a speedy number 9 to be able to get in that position?
He should be playing on the centre half shoulder anyway. So when he's playing on the centre half shoulder, he should be pushing the centre halves back as far as he can, or close to the 18-yard box. In which case, Rashford and Anthony should be coming deep. So he really should be maybe 10 yards ahead of them anyway, waiting for the perfect ball in to slide in between from the penalty spot towards the goal. Sorry,
I think it's also with the finishing. Obviously, Benny McCarthy, I think will teach him to be where you need to be, where you get the goals. Because obviously, he worked with Rashford last season, and Rashford starts to get a few more of those poachers goals last season, and I think he'll probably work with Hoyland to make sure you're in a certain area so you pick up goals. It might obviously take time with him. He's only about 20, isn't he? But I think that's one thing, having Benny McCarthy as a coach there, that might actually help him progress, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch what he did for Atalanta, I mean, he is a very strong and look, people point to Erling Haaland, okay, that they got his second goal yesterday, but his first goal, where was he? Thank you very much. What was he? 6 yards out, something like that. Bang. His second goal, where he got in front of De Bruyne, second attempt where he got on De Bruyne, it was on the corner of the 6-yard area. That's where the box, that's where you need to be. That's where a striker thrives. And as a centre half, by the way, you're not happy because he's pushing you and he's pushing you and he's pushing you. So that's when you deploy all the dark arts that you may deploy if you feel like it during a match. Potentially.
I tried, but being fast isn't going to help you in the world of Stu Willie. The final little mini question I've got to finish ourselves off is obviously the news has come out that we could be next season in a top 5 race rather than a top 4 race. Obviously, this season it'll be based on the 2 best countries because the format obviously next season changes. It will change to 36 teams that qualify, and they will all play, well, not all play against each other, but they'll play as one league. The top 8 teams will go through automatically, obviously replacing the group stages. And then the people that are placed between 9th and 24th will then play off. And in those 8 games, the winners will then go through to create the round of 16. If we were to take previous seasons, England would have had that new spot because 5 out of the 6 last seasons, our country has performed best in UEFA competitions. So my question really is this. We've had the European Super League idea. That was thrown out. Nobody liked it because it was pants. What do you think of the change of the format? Is it something where you go, this could be quite good, it'll be all right following this Swiss format? Or do you think they should have just left it alone? Stu?
Well, I hate the Champions League anyway, because if you finish 4th and you qualify for the Champions League, what's the fucking point in that? You're not champions of what? What are you champions of? When you start the season, the lads will be looking at Monday, and it'll be, we must finish top. You want to get in the Champions League, you finish top, period. Everything else below that, what's the point? When have you ever gone and done something and said, "Oh, guys, listen, we don't need to finish 5th this time, and we'll get in the Champions League"? What a load of bollocks that is! Oh, God.
It sort of reminds me of the athletics. You know, you do the athletics and have the fastest loser just to make up the space. And you're like, why?
I know.
They're never gonna win.
And this is, do you know, this is unfortunately systemic of what's going on in the world today. When I was going through, it was first, second, and third. You weren't particularly happy with second or third, but you know what? You got something. Now you get a ribbon for fucking 10th, for putting your socks on the right way, tying your boots up before you walk onto the pitch. Hey, here's a medal for you, pal. Take that. Stuff. You know, if you want to be serious, and this is basically, let's cut to the crux of this, lads, and we all know what this is. This is the European Super League reformatted under the Champions League banner. We all know this, but you know, people are laughing at, you know, people getting into the Conference League, Europa Conference League, and I've always said you're getting into some kind of European competition, and that is it. So if we've got 5 places in the Champions League, what if you finish 9th, do you get in the Europa Conference League? Fucking 9th, and you get into Europe, or 8th, you get into Europe. Stuff that. Yeah. What's the point? It's all about money. It's money, 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 money. To get into Champions League, you should be called champions. And, you know, and I've always believed this, I always willed it. I've said it as well with the playoffs. You know, Wrexham scored 111 points. Notts County scored 107 points, didn't they, last season? You know, and they had to do a playoff. Why? The team behind them scored 84 points. 84 points. You know, you shouldn't do it. You finished third in the Championship. You earn the right to go up to the Premier League, but you finished 5th, and you've got no business being anywhere near the Champions League. 5th, 3rd is pushing it for me. Maybe top 2 at a point, but you want to qualify for the Champions League as champions. We are the champions, and I can go alongside Barcelona. I could go alongside PSG. We can go along, and we can hold our heads high. We're champions of our country, and that means a lot to me, to be champions, because that's your goal. Your goal isn't to finish 5th. If your goal becomes to finish 5th, you're just complacent throughout the season. Players become complacent. You know,
it's a fair point, and I suppose
that's
one thing it does do, Andrew, by having 4 or 5, is it does make the league a little bit more exciting, especially when you've got teams like Man City that have run away with it. Otherwise, the rest of the league don't really have too much to fight for.
I just remember, was it Arsene Wenger saying many years ago, all 4th place is a trophy, like putting Champions League. No, I'm like, now 5th place is going to become a trophy. I'm like, no, I'm just like, I remember back in the 90s, and when Blackburn picked us the title, they went to qualify for the Champions League, went straight through, and we had to, you know, go through qualifying legs to get in. So, you know, you had 2 teams that could get into the Champions League, and I just think, was the format of the Champions League, you know, broken, or, you know, they're just trying to tinker with it just to...
Do you know what the problem was, Andrew? The problem was there was too many weaker teams at that point, wasn't there? When you look at the leagues, the Hungarian league, etc., etc. Now that's gone. That's over. Turkish teams are strong, aren't they?
Yeah, many teams have become strong.
Croatian teams are strong. You know, they're strong teams. Anyway, what do I know?
I feel like it's like the Super League via the back door. And I just think UEFA want more matches, more, you know. And I think it's probably more stems from the club, because they want more money from UEFA, and UEFA don't want to. They didn't want to give it out in the current format, so we said, "Oh, we'll do it this way, that way. More teams come in, more matches, more money." So it's just like, because I know it's going to be like a league format, and was it the top 8 go through, and then, you know, the other 8 will go into. I think, you know, another 8 playoff winners will be decided between, I think, is it 9th and 24th. So like it's just like, I don't think it needed to be changed. Maybe with the current format as it was, you could have just put more groups, you know, in there, and you still would have got. But I know that's like having a knock-on effect. You know, like the League Cup was saying, you know, with more matches in the Champions, where do we fit in our games now? It's like, that's, you know, teams, you know, those Premier League teams are going to feel weak inside as well in the League Cup as well. So it's just like they're worried, you know, it just devalues that, you know, League Cup as well. And, you know, I say recent times the League Cup has been valued sometimes highly more than the FA Cup, and it's been the reverse in years gone by. But I just say I have to see how this Champions League format works, and then same. Might be tinkered with again. Who knows? But so we've got to give it a try and see how it works.
Okay, well, Tony, John, have you got anything that flies in the face of what these two have said, or shall I move on to the final question? Because I feel like
it's just money. Everyone knows it's money. It's just Super League under the guise of the Champions League. It's staffed. You celebrate fifth, you're a bit weird if you're being honest. I think even celebrating fourth and third's a bit weird. Like, obviously, we're happy. I was happy with third last season, but I didn't go out going, "Oh, look at us, we finished third in the league." Yeah, I mean, it's a bit weird.
I mean,
not bragging rights, is it?
I mean, if you finish second by 1 point, you can rightly celebrate, because what's the point? It's neither in nor there. But if you finish third, what were we? Were we 12 or 16 points in the end behind? 16 points.
Right behind Arsenal, so
16 points.
No. I think you got our aim is not to finish fifth. Our aim is to try and get as close to first place as possible. I don't think we'll come on to prediction. I do agree. I personally think Champions League. I don't know. I think it. Well, we know the Super League will come back at some point, and I get the element that I think the Champions League might be on a bit of borrowed time, possibly, because I can see the Super League coming back in a few years. And but yeah, I think it's idiotic that you can have 5 teams from the same league going to the Champions League.
All right, so it is here the last question, the actual last question, which is your prediction for the top 4. So who's going to win the league and who will be the 4 teams in the not quite Champions League? That really tickled me, Stu, because it's how I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Stu, who's your top 4?
Yeah, I've deliberated about this. I don't actually think we're quite there yet to snatch the title away from City. So I think City are going to, unfortunately, make it 4 in a row. Our goal, I think, would be to finish no more than 6 points behind City. That should be where we should target ourselves. If we finish, 16 before, we're going to make up 10 points somewhere along the line. I think we can make 10 points up. I don't think we can make 16 or 17 points then, which is what we might need to win the title. I don't see City dropping too much. I don't see City drawing too many games, but I don't see them losing too many games. So I'm going to go City, United, but with a better points deficit than what we had last season. I'm going to go Liverpool, because I think Liverpool are going to spring a bit of a surprise, irrespective of the comedy act that is going on across Stanley Park at the moment. I still think they're good enough to make third. And I go with Arsenal 4th. I don't see Newcastle sustaining it. I think they got lucky today, if I'm being honest. I thought Villa kind of played into the hands a little bit. Tottenham have got a massive issue. You've just lost 30 goals. Go and find 30 goals from somewhere.
That's, like those factoring Chelsea are not in Europe.
Now, Chelsea are an interesting one. And there's people that are putting Chelsea in there. I think they're too disjointed as a club at this point in time. I think if you bring in Casado, you bring in Lavia, you brought in a new goalkeeper. Am I right in saying they've got a new goalkeeper?
They've got Sanchez in goal.
Sanchez, yeah. You brought a new goalkeeper in. They haven't strengthened. Well, have they? Yeah, they did strengthen centre half, didn't they? I've lost track of who they bought. If I'm being completely honest with you, and that's my
window. To be fair,
yeah, I understand why everybody's putting Chelsea in. I've got no issues with people. I don't see it, and I see Arsenal being quite consistent this season. If you look at Liverpool's last 12 games, they really showed some real form last 12 games. And I think if they if they push that through for the first 5-6 games of this season, they're going to be there or thereabouts. So I'm going to go City, United, Liverpool, Arsenal. I can't see anyone beating City, but with a points deficit, reduction. I think we'll only finish about 6.6 or maybe 7 points.
Everybody's mentioned it so far, has gone with City first. I actually was very close to Connor, and you can check on Twitter. You can see Dan and I have both predicted our entire league, the whole 1 to 20. So do get involved in the poll to see who's going to win that. But Connor went City, United, Arsenal, Chelsea. I went City, United, Arsenal, and Liverpool. Andrew, what was your thought?
I was going to say I debated this. I thought in my heart I wanted to put United first, but I thought I had to think with my head. I thought a Manchester club will win the league. I just thought City. So they've got that winning mentality with the league at the moment. We haven't won it for 10 years. So I think Stu said we're going to have a better points than we did last season. So I did put City first, and then I think we're going to run City close, but I think they'll just get over the line. Unfortunately, I went with Arsenal third. I just think from the way they've started today, I'm just thinking they'll want to improve on their the season they've had from last season. Actually went for Liverpool fourth. I think they're going to come out the traps. They want something to prove from last season. They don't want to be struggling again. I think if they were to struggle again this season, from what I've heard, the talk that Klopp would leave at the end of the season if they started struggling again. And I think as much as the dominant performance, Newcastle were giving today, I just think they're just going to fall short. I don't think they're going to break that top four. So I think they're going to...
Don't forget, lads, either Liverpool or Chelsea or both will be on the back foot tomorrow evening because they're playing each other.
I think it's difficult where I know it's like early, it does, because their results don't necessarily match in terms of like what will happen over the course season. But I think tomorrow's game might be an outlier because I think if Chelsea were to win it, I would possibly put them in the top four. But if Liverpool got a result, I'll probably put them in there, and even this early. So for me, my top four, I'll probably go with City, United, Arsenal, Liverpool.
Okay, and Tony?
I don't think Liverpool or Chelsea will get top four this season.
Ooh.
I don't.
What's your four?
The thing is, right, Liverpool, their midfield's really thin. It's super thin. And they're not getting Cassiodo now. Lavia's touch and go whether or not he comes. As much as they've sold the players that they wanted to get rid of, they've not replaced them. And can you say that squad's better than the squad they had last season, all in all? Maybe their starting 11 is, but we all know that squad makes up a team, not a starting 11. And Europa League as well, playing on a Thursday. It's hard. It's hard when you've not got the biggest squad. Chelsea, I think they'll be much improved. Can I see them? Newcastle today look good, really good against a Villa team that a lot of people have touted to do very well this season. And I think Newcastle will only get better. I don't think the thing with United, Arsenal, and City, you got to look at it. Because I've watched all the games this week. I watched City's game last night. Well, after I got back from Peter Kay, I did, and I watched the Arsenal game earlier on. Arsenal still have frailties. City, as for all their brilliance, they've lost Mahrez, who's a great player. They've lost Gundogan, who was arguably one of their midfield's impeccable. So, but you know what I mean? It's such a cognitive part of that team. And De Bruyne could be out for a really long time. And De Bruyne is a massive miss for them.
What injury has he got?
He's had a hamstring problem for quite a while. And
reoccurrence of the Champions League.
And for me, losing De Bruyne for 3 months, which is reported that they could be out without him for, it's a long time to have without arguably the best midfielder on the planet. Do I think United will win the league? I said the other day on Twitter, I said, as much as I'd love us to win the league, there's still one or two areas where we're not very strong in at the moment. I think we shouldn't be throwing all our eggs in the Hoyland basket straight away. He's a young lad.
Totally agree.
If he gets 10 goals this season, I think he's done well for himself. I know people go, you paid 70 million for him. He should be getting 20. Obviously, that's the point where we want him to end up at. But right now, we've got to be realistic with things. And, it's as much as Onana's going to come in and rejuvenate the the back line in a lot of ways. There's still going to be some growing pains with a few things. I just can't see us winning the league this season. But I think we'll come a lot closer. I think the teams that finish in the top three, which for me are City to win the league, Arsenal or United to finish either second or third, but all three of those teams get comfortably 80 points.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think you're right about. I think Onana cost us 6 to 10 goals, unfortunately, this season. Where Schmeichel won us would win us 12 goals. Look, the Onana costing is that's kind of not what I mean. What I mean is that we will fall asleep at one point at the back in a tight game, and it could happen. Look, it's life. That's football. So I'm not necessarily, I'm not blaming anybody for that. I totally agree. I think Hoyland gets, as I said earlier, I think he only gets 10, maybe 12 goals this season. I don't see us, I don't see Rashford having that impact as he did last season, but I do see him probably getting 15 to 20. I think Sancho will chip in with about 8 to 10. I think Casemiro will get a couple. Anthony will probably score 7, 8, maybe this season.
Bruno
8, 10. So I think we've got goals across the team this year. And Garnacho will probably get between 5 and 7, depending on how we play him.
I think Mason Mount might chip in with a few.
I think he'll get 7. So I think we'll do well across, and I think we've got a more balanced squad this year. We've got a more balanced 11, and I would play. By the way, Monday. I know you did your team last week, but I would play a floating front three on Monday, and I play Sancho as in the middle between Anthony and Rashford, and I would play a floating front three. I wouldn't stick those rigidly to left, right, and centre. I would play a floating one, and just really kind of upset the Wolves' defence. Bruno in behind, or you could push Bruno in as a false 9-ish and drop Sancho in behind. I think it's quite a nice package, that. But I think it only yields us 2 goals. I don't think it yields us more than 2. But look, it's really interesting. But I think we've all gone for the same teams, really, haven't we? So, it's quite...
No, absolutely. I mean, this is just to hide you there, Stu, but that's what we went for last week.
I do have a caveat on that one. Well, I've got 2. There's 2 caveats. Garnacho out. Now, here's something for you guys, and I'm hidden, so that's okay. But I would actually play, I would start Eriksen over Mount on Monday, and I would bring Mount on with about 30-35 minutes to go for his pressing ability. I would actually start with Eriksen. I'm not nothing against Mount, by the way. I've got 0 problem with Mount. I think he's a good addition to the squad, but I think Eriksen, because I'm not so sure. I don't know what you guys think, and it's only pre-season, so let's take that into account. I just don't kind of see the connection yet between Casemiro and Mount. It will get there, no doubts. 5 or 6 games in, I think you'll see a really good connection. So for me, I would start, because I think we need to win Monday. So I would start Eriksen over Mount and then bring Mount in. But anyway, that's just what I would do.
I've got a hypothetical question about the starting lineup, obviously, with Kobe Maino. If he was fit, I genuinely believe he'd have started on Monday. I don't know why. I think he would have started over in the Mount position.
I potentially. I think Mount will start, by the way. I really do. I don't see Garnacho starting. I think Sancho comes in, I have to say. But I do see Mount starting. But I've got no issues with putting Maino in. And I've got no issues putting Eriksen in. So,
And there's the line. I didn't want to stop you guys. You're on a roll, an absolute roll. But listen, we've spoken about just about everything that's happened this week, which is what Saturday Night Live is designed for. We've spoken about Fred leaving. We've spoken about Maguire possibly leaving. But there's somebody leaving that is, frankly, going to be a bigger loss to all of us here at Manchester United than Fred or Maguire. And that is, of course, Mr. John John Commode. He's been on for absolutely ages, not just tonight, just in general. Some people play too much, a bit like me. But you've been involved with All for United all since the beginning, when Ben was around and all of that sort of jazz. So as a result, we need to say goodbye to John. And then this guy decided that he wanted to be involved. So he's been patiently waiting. I said 10 minutes, half an hour ago.
Yeah, sorry, that's my fault.
It was good. It was good. So I'm like, listen, we're not cutting it down. Listen, I've got things I'd like to say to John. But Connor, how important do you think John has been to not just All for United, but also WFC as well? Because he's often been over there as well.
No, I think, sorry, I hope it don't embarrass you too much, John, but I think you epitomise what All for United has been and will continue to be, because you have been, as Barry said there, a big part of the community. I always use that word. You're always, if you're not on shows, you're always reliable when you come on. If we ask you to come on, you're around, you're reliable, always promoting shows. If you're not on them, you're in the comments. And this is for both channels. People don't know us, obviously, with the women's channel as well. So, yeah, obviously, we're going to miss you with the time difference, obviously, coming on shows. We'll try and get you on. We'll try and get you on at some point. It's going to happen. It's not a goodbye as such. We'll get you back on at some point. But, just... I said thanks for everything that you've done for both channels. As I said, obviously, I need to sort your Predictions League prize out. I'll message you about that tomorrow, actually, because I wanted to sort that before you go away. So I need to sort that out. But no, honestly, just super person to have on. And also at games as well. Obviously, I've spent a lot of time with you at women's games as well. I think I tweeted at the end of the season on a personal thing, helped me massively at Liverpool away for the women's at the back end of the season. That's certainly, I'm never going to forget things like that. With Andrew as well, there's also sat right next to you on screen there as well. So, I hope the move all goes well and everything goes great for you in America, because you fully deserve it. So, massive thanks from myself, obviously, and from an All for United point of view. You've been smashing to have on the channel, and really appreciate everything that you've done for it.
Well, thank you very much. And so I'm going to obviously miss not going to games and that. Obviously, I met all of you, barring Tony, of course. Hopefully, we meet one day, hopefully. But I'm going to miss you all, attending women's matches and that. But it's a great channel. It's been a pleasure to contribute towards it. Just short 2 years now, I think. So it's a great channel. I've enjoyed being part of it. I've learned so much about women's game, watching the women's channel and that. Obviously, John Foster originally on the women's channel did a great job, and obviously Connor's taken over from both John and Ben, and it's a fantastic channel to be part of, and obviously we've had many wonderful people in the comments as well, and have been as much part of the community as well. So I'm obviously going to try and appear on shows when I can. It'll be a bit hard during the week when I eventually get a job. I might be able the first couple of months when I move to America, but it's been fantastic knowing you all, and I wish everyone all happiness in the future.
Stu, you got anything you'd like to say to John?
Yeah, well, when it was first recommended whether Johnny K came in, I said no chance. Fucking waste of space. Useless. Wasn't interested at all. And then I met him. No, I'm only kidding, John. I didn't. Look, we've been very lucky, actually, to have some really good followers. And when I joined about 3 years ago, I think it is now, John was in the chat, and he was very supportive of us all, as Jarvis has been here with us pretty much from the start as well. And we've gained followers, and we've gained supporters over the years, and it's been great. And John was one of those, and Jarvis has been one of those that's been able to come onto the show. And John's knowledge of the game is deeper and greater than most fans really realise, because although he's not as old as me, he is an old bastard, and he kind of understands the history of Manchester United, and he gets a history of Manchester United, which is what I always went, and John will tell you this, when I first started, so will Connor, when I first started, I was plugging the history side of it a lot, because it's really important, because Manchester United today wasn't born in 1986 when Fergie walked through the door. It was born in 18, whatever it was. I can't remember the date now. And John always reminded, was always on my side with that. And so, look, John, I don't think it's goodbye, mate, because I'm pretty sure you'll remain with the guys. So wish you all the best in Florida, mate.
Thank you.
So quickly, was it? Am I thinking? I might get this completely wrong. Was it the fact that you drink in the same pub as Callum, and Callum was the one that met you in the pub one? Because you were obviously in the comments, and then he got you on.
First, yeah.
I think because Callum just lives across the way here, and so I did meet him originally, and obviously Pride's joined, and I think I saw. I'm not sure if you were there, Barry, but I think the first women's game I went to was the Manchester Derby, which suits, I think Connor ran through and Stu was there, so I met you for the first time.
I was there, yeah, first time, yeah. You had that leather jacket on, John.
I did. Yes, yeah. But that was before I appeared on my first show, and then, but yeah, it's been wonderful to see, and it was Callum originally, and he's been great. I'll watch it in the days of like Temi and Kartik and Joe, people like that, and we've had many wonderful people contribute and that.
My memory's not going just yet.
No, not yet. Memory. Tone, you've not known John quite as long, but you've been on with a few shows. Is there anything you'd like to say to John before he goes?
Honestly, it's been a pleasure. You're so full of enthusiasm. Every time I'm on a show, you're just the most enthusiastic, even more enthusiastic than me. And you're a joy to be around. And honestly, you've really helped me since being on the channel. And when everything that happened with my dad, honestly, the messages that you sent me, everyone sent me. Was so beautiful, and it does mean a lot. So honestly, good luck in Florida, and I'm sure we're going to do shows with you again anyway. I'm confident of that. So yeah, but good luck anyway, mate.
Oh, thank you very much.
No worries, buddy.
And Andrew, you've known John quite a while as well. You've had the privilege of watching football next to him. He's a funny old boy, isn't he, to stand next to him and watch football with. But what are you going to say about John?
So yeah, you're definitely going to be Mr. Games. I remember you saying the Manchester Derby. As I say, that was my first game when we sat together, because we was on the other side of everyone else. So we was looking over and seeing them singing.
That was where I was waving to you, wasn't it? Because I was on my own, probably. Because I don't think I could.
I could on the other stand, wasn't you?
Yeah, on my own. We were to the right of the dugout. Andrew and John were to the left of the dugout, and you were behind the goal.
Right. Yeah, all on my own. Yeah, typical.
So we couldn't get season tickets to on the other side. So the whole season that side. And then I think you was as well, Barry. I think he was on our side that season. Then we all moved across. But yeah, definitely going to be missed at the games. Hopefully you get to come over at some point and catch up as well. But I wish you all the best for your new life in America.
Thank you very much.
Well, what is there to say about our John, other than the fact that when we go for behind the scenes, the fact that these shows don't just happen. We don't just sit here and go, we'll just find 6 people. If you knew how hard it was to get 4 or 5 people to come and join you on a show, you'd realise just how tricky it can be. But John is one of those who you knew you could always get. And I think for me, that's one of the big things. The support that you've given me, Connor, John and Ben in the past as well. It's just been absolutely unbelievable. And again, Southerner coming up north to come and watch Man United and not knowing people. It's lovely when you meet welcoming fans, like all of you have been. Not you, Sam, because I haven't seen you at a football match. You're just welcoming and lovely on the internet. But
like the invisible man, mate.
I didn't do it at a match either, I don't think. So. But yeah, you've been brilliant. And as a result, I have come up with a little 4-lined poem for you. It's a very easy one. It's simple like this. It's he's always on and always here. Our Stato's on his way. So thank you, mate, for all your time. Our super Big John K.
That's pretty good.
Thank you, Barry.
But yeah, honestly, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Good luck in Florida. We will get you on. As we know, with most people that come from America, it's just the time difference that's the trickiest part to navigate. But we will do what we can because Saturday Night Live won't change. So just don't get a job on a Saturday and you can come back. Easy. Until then, vacancies are now there for a Stato. So please apply via DM on All for United because life goes on. You've got to replace people, haven't you? So we might as well just get rid of him now. Actually, just do that there. And then I'm joking. Would I? Yeah, I would, but no, I don't. So there we go. Anyway, look, it's been brilliant. Thank you, everyone. Connor, lovely for you to show your face over here. Thanks for popping on. Anything else you'd like to add, Connor?
No, not really. I think I said all I needed to. On that one. It was a good show, to be fair. I will just quickly say, I put it in the comments. Stu's floating front three. I've never heard of that before. That's quite a saying, that.
Yeah.
I'm going to nick that.
Yes. Yeah, I better copyright that. I better copyright that now, hadn't I? Crikey. Let me get on to that straight away.
See, it's alliteration, Connor. That's why it works. I think while we're just going to, as he's here, can I just check that the four of you have seen the original Lion King?
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Yes.
So many times.
Oh, dear.
See, I can't believe you.
Mufasa.
Anyway, you can't be going down that road. Boys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Hour and a half. John, take care in Florida. Thank you so much.
Well done, John.
Once again, the rest of us will be back, I'm sure, next week when Dan will be back as well. We've missed Dan, and he's missed the ability to stand up for Harry Maguire. But there we go. That's how the game goes. We have got lots going on. Anything coming up on the women's channel that we should care about, Mr. Connor?
Not that's in the public domain, but there's a few signings finally happening, so there'll be plenty of player profile shows and things like that will be across the line. Obviously, we're coming to the end of the Women's World Cup, so there's only a couple of shows left and the Lionesses are still in it as well. So got a couple more Lioness shows to wrap us up, and then it's into pre-season for United Women.
I think we're going to hobble over the line and actually win that, and it will be a hobble, won't it? Because we're not really playing well.
That's exactly what I said. I can see England just shithousing their 1-0 way to the fight. Just go on with it.
It'll come off Russo's knee somewhere, won't it? Or something like that. Now she's at Arsenal. Typical Arsenal player. Typical Google.
Indeed.
Absolutely that. What are we going? So that's going to be the women's channel. We'll be back next Saturday, like I say, with Dan, Saturday Night Live, where we'll be dissecting everything, I'm sure, that's happened.
Hopefully 6 points on the board.
Oh, yeah, it's Tottenham next week. I keep forgetting that.
Yeah, I've got Tottenham next week. Yeah, next Saturday.
It should be. Now Spurs are as toothless as Wolves. It should be fine. And you can blame me if it all goes wrong on Saturday. So there we go. Brilliant. Thank you very much, guys. We'll see you all on Saturday. Good night, all.